Good morning, folks. We will start in about 2 minutes. Just allow people to roll on in. Thank you very much. Good morning. Thank you for joining. We will get started in approximately 1 minute. Thank you very much. All right. Good morning, everyone. We're tracking at about 190 people, so we have a wonderful audience for our session, and we will get started. Uh, no product manager presentation would be complete without a safe harbor statement, so please do make any purchasing decisions based on existing functionality. There'll be a quiz on this at the end of the session. Uh, sorry, let me just move this bar. So in addition to this session, we have many other resources available. So please do check out our community and our YouTube channel. We will post links to these uh, in the chat, so you'll be able to access these resources after the session. So our goal today in AI Academy, like all other AI academies, is to bring you a deeper understanding and fresh ideas of specific product functionality. We also want to be very practical in terms of making it easy for you to deploy and see value in the solutions that we present. This session is being recorded and it will be posted publicly on the community, as I mentioned. And also feel free to ask any questions using the Q&A panel. We'll either answer those as the session progresses, or we will have a moment to do that at the end of the session as well. So good morning from the wet Santa Cruz Mountains. My name is Ramsarran. I'm an outbound product manager in our generative AI practice group. I'm also joined by Arvind Baranwal, who is our inbound product manager. And I do thank Arvind for joining us very late his time, and he will be available in the Q&A session for questions and answers as well. Today, we will start with a product overview. Our specific topic of conversation is the RAG Retriever in Analysis Skill Kit. We'll follow this up with a hands-on exercise, and then we will leave some time for questions and answers. So as you know, here at ServiceNow, our platform touches every corner of your business, whether you're talking about IT, HR, CRM, or even developer personas and beyond. We have one common platform with one data model. And with this common architecture, we are able to put AI to work in a very impactful way. Now, with Now Assist, we have released out-of-the-box AI capabilities, what we call skills, for a number of workflows. For example, in ITSM or CSM or HR, you will see workflows A lot of these skills in general relate to things such as summarization or generation or Q&A, or even the ability to author responses for emails or chat, for example. However, you may be in the situation where you want to be able to create new skills, skills that are not offered out of the box, skills to support other use cases that unique use cases that you may have in your business. And it is for this reason that we have created the Now Assist Skill Kit. And the Now Assist Skill Kit really allows you to change that conversation from here's what we can do today with regards to out of the box skills and shift that conversation to which problems do we want to start solving first. So when we introduce the Now Assist Skill Kit, we really put the hands in the powers of you administrators and AI practitioners to be able to tweak and instrument how our AI solutions are used within your business model. And when we talk about the AI Skill Kit, there are a number of different aspects to it. First, we give you that ability to create a new skill definition. You can author the prompt, so you have fine-tuned control over what goes into the prompting before it is submitted to the large language model service. You can augment that prompt with information. So this could be information that you gather from workflows or scripts or API calls out to external systems. And specifically for our purpose today, we're going to talk about the RAG retrieval method, how you can retrieve information from our platform search capabilities. You can test those skills against records that you may have in your instance to determine the quality of the prompt that you have engineered or designed. And then you can rapidly roll out and trigger those skills either as a UI action. You can also trigger it via what we call the Now Assist panel within a workspace or core classic user interfaces as well. And of course, you can activate those skills. We make it very easy for you to deploy those skills in a point and click manner, as opposed to requiring heavy coding to make that AI skill available to your users. So how do these custom skills work at a high level? There's a 4-step way of thinking of how these skills work. Step number 1 is a skill will gather input. This input can be gathered from a number of sources. It can be gathered from the UI experience itself. It can be gathered from integrations to external systems. You can even trigger a workflow to gather information that will serve as input to a given skill. And for the purpose of our conversation today, we're going to talk about the RAG retriever as being another mechanism for gathering input into a given skill. The second step is that you would use the skill kit to build a prompt. We do have pre-configured prompts and templates that you can leverage, but you can also create a custom prompt. In fact, we'll be doing a custom prompt today, and we'll show you the mechanics and the details of how you can set up a custom prompt. And then you can trigger that prompt. So any skill that's triggered within the Now platform is done via what we call the generative AI controller. The generative AI controller is where we make sure that the data is secure, that if there's any guardrails or any sensitive data, that it's handled accordingly. This is also where you instrument the specific large language model that may be used. So you could leverage our on-platform large language model, the Now large language model services. You can bring your own large language model, or if you have external large language models, we have spokes that are available that you can make calls to such customer-provided large language model, whether that might be Azure, OpenAI, Google, Amazon Bedrock, etc. Once we have passed the prompt over to the large language model service, then we're able to generate a response and expose it to the end user on the given interface. That interface may be a workspace, it could be a VA chat, it could be a number of different interfaces that we expose the response to. So let's talk a little bit about our hands-on exercise today. We're going to do an exercise, and The example that we're going to do is we're going to do a travel and compliance expense checker or tracker, if you would. And for this travel and expense compliance checker, what we're going to do is we're going to create a prompt. And the first step is that there will be a knowledge base article that has what the given policy is for the travel and expense report. So that article will specify what the cost allowance is, given the type of item that is being expensed. The second thing we will have is we will have a record. In this example, we're going to use a case record where we're retrieving a summary of the employee's expense. So we'll take that KB article that has the travel and expense policy. We will compare it to the expense report being submitted, and we will let the large language model check and verify that the submitted expense report complies with the given policy. And then we'll generate a summary of any non-compliant expenses. So before we get into the hands-on section, let's talk about some of the interface screens that you will see. We will start by creating a prompt definition. And eventually what we'll do is we'll wire that prompt against what we call the retriever in order to pull back information. So let's have a look at some of these admin screens so you understand what's going on when we hop into the application. So the first thing is we have a search query. The search query could either be a string literal, like I have here, global travel expense and credit card policy. You could also input other fields, or you could script in information. So there is a picker here where we do have the ability to dot walk and pull additional fields of data in terms of defining the search query. So it doesn't have to be literal. It can be a dynamic kind of query. The second thing that you will configure is what's called a search profile. And the search profile is what hooks you into AI search. And the search profile is where we know what indexes or index sources the query is going to interrogate. Now, this could be internal tables such as knowledge base. It could also be based on external integration. Perhaps you're using something like our external SharePoint connector, and you want the query to be against SharePoint documents. You can basically query against any type of index source that you define via a search profile. The third thing you will do is you'll specify what you want to search. So in this case, we want to search the KB article. And what specific fields do we want to return? We want to return the description. This could be one or many fields that you want to return, and the number of KB articles that you want to return. In our example, it's a little bit unrealistic that we're only going to return one. I would expect that you might want to return a handful, like say 5 or 10. But in our example, we're just going to return that single KB article that has the expense policy that we're after. And then finally, down here, you have what we call the search criteria, or the method by which the searching will occur. And you could either do it by keyword, semantically, or hybrid. And there's an entire architecture, and this is what we refer to as our RAG architecture, that underlies these three choices. So let's have a look at that for a moment. So when we're talking about the RAG architecture, we're essentially talking about this type of logical flow. This custom skill via an API is going to submit the query. Perhaps we will rewrite the query a little bit. Query rewriting happens internally, so that's not something that you need to be involved with. But eventually that query is going to get submitted to what we call an embedding model. And there's two things that are in play here. Door number one is we have traditional keyword searching. So this is where you're searching based on word frequency, word proximity. Perhaps you are normalizing the word, you're reducing the word to its stem. So the word bike, biker, biking may be reduced to the stem. That's kind of traditional, what we refer to as keyword or lexical kind of matching. The second methodology we have is what we call semantic. And what that is we are using word vectors in order to return the most meaningful knowledge articles that may match your given query. So we have a vector database that's in instance. It's a Lucene database that's within your ServiceNow instance. And what we basically do is we chunk information against the articles in that vector database. So when we perform a hybrid search, we're doing both keyword as well as semantic. And then when we get the results, we re-rank them. So we might get say the top 10 keyword results and then the top 10 semantic results. We will collate those together and we will re-rank them to get the most relevant results. And then this information is passed over to the large language model, and then we provide a grounded response back to the skill kit. So as you can see, there's quite a lot happening behind these three simple little selection icons that you have here. You do either want to maybe use semantic or keyword, or hybrid will allow you to use both approaches. Okay. The second config screen that we're going to be encountering looks like this. And this is where we're defining what the semantic indexes are. So if we decide to utilize that semantic methodology, we want to look at body and title fields when we derive the vectors for the semantic index. In addition, there is an advanced configuration. This requires a little bit of high school math. So this is what they call the cosine similarity. Essentially, what you're doing here is you're saying how similar the word vectors need to be with each other. So by default, it's 0. And as you increase this number from 0, it is a decimal number. You increase it to 0.5, 0.75 towards 1. You will get more precise results, but you may be losing certain vectors or documents that have a lesser score. So this is something that you will play around with to find the optimal threshold based on your use case and the data set that you may be experimenting with. And then the final admin screen here this is where you define the number of chunks. So in a given article, this is the number of chunks that you will be using on that article. And by the way, these chunks are in 750 word blocks, but you could also change this, right? So you could be like, instead of using words, I want to use sentences. And instead of 750 sentences, it might be probably more realistic to say 40 sentences or something of that nature. So the first thing you specify here is the number of chunks per document. Then what you do is you specify the chunking strategy. It could either be fixed by word or sentence. There's also this other technique, which is called small to big. And what this is where you kind of expand the chunking, let's say left to right, and you may encounter other chunks of data as you determine what are the most relevant chunks for the vector search to perform its analysis against. And then finally, down here, there's the top K. This is the number of chunks the re-ranker will return. So these are some admin screens that we're going to be encountering when we get into the hands-on exercise. So let's do that. Let's go ahead and show where we're at with the hands-on exercise. I'm going to flip my screen here, and hopefully we have not timed out. Let me just quickly do a refresh. Okay. So the first thing that we want to look at is we want to look at the knowledge article that we're going to be retrieving and the information, the policy information that's within the knowledge article. So here we are on knowledge article 131. And there's some information in this knowledge article. It tells us what the purpose of the knowledge article is. It tells us that as of the beginning of this year, that pre-trip approvals are required. It also says to us that hotels should not exceed $500 per night, and that we have meal allowances of $25, $30, and $50 per day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, respectively. So this is the policy definition that we are going to be interacting with. The second thing that's important is to know what is the expense report that the employee could potentially be submitting. So this is case number 1109, and this is an expense report for January 27th. It does have a pre-approval number, and you'll notice that it has the check-in information for the hotel, when we checked in, when we checked out, what the total cost was, as well as the per cost of each respective meal throughout the days that we stayed at the hotel. So those are the two pieces of input data that we will potentially be utilizing when we create our new skill. Now let's go and create our skill. So we're going to go over into ServiceNow, into the filter navigator, and we are going to type in now assist skill kit. And this will take us to our skill kit home. And you'll notice that we have a bunch of skills defined. I was playing around earlier, but what we're going to do is we're going to create a new skill. And we're going to go ahead and give our skill a name. It's going to be called expense report approval. We are going to go ahead and give it a description. This is the global expense and credit card policy. And you'll notice that we can specify what the default provider may be. And there could be a number of default providers, but we're going to go ahead and we're going to use the now LLM generic service. But we have a very open approach in terms of providers that you may decide to leverage. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to create the skill. So this is what our skill definition looks like. And what we want to do is we want to instrument the inputs for the skill definition. So the first input that we want to have for the skill definition is the case. So we'll go ahead and click the plus sign. The data type is going to be a record. The table name is going to be SN underscore customer service underscore case. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to query the case record, and we're going to call it and we're going to go ahead and add that as input. We can also choose a test record. And if you may recall, the test record that I had was, I think it was 1109. So let's go ahead and select that. And we're going to add that as an input to the skill. Now, that allows us to retrieve the expense summary that the employee may have submitted, but we also want to retrieve or have as an input the knowledge article that I showed you previously. So we're going to go under skill, under tools, going to go ahead and hit that plus sign. And under tools, this is going to be a retriever. And you'll notice that it's the RAG retriever. So this is Retrieval Augmented Generation. And we're going to go ahead and we're going to configure the retriever. And this is where you're going to see that feels, you're going to see screens that look similar to what we spoke about. So we're going to call this expense report policy. And the query that we're going to do is we're going to query a very specific term. We're going to query global travel expense and credit card policy. And the reason why this is perhaps a little bit unrealistic, but what we're doing here is we're literally querying the title of this knowledge article over here. Now, the search profile that we're going to use is going to be the knowledge search profile, but you can create and configure your own custom search profiles, and they may be associated with specific indexes, either internal or external indexed information that may be of interest to you. Now, the search source here is going to be knowledge keyword semantic. So we are doing both a semantic as well as a keyword search. And we're going to go ahead and return specific fields of data. So we're going to click on the picker, the pale picker, and we're going to say that we want to return from the knowledge article the description. And by the way, you could return many fields. We could return the description as well as the country code or other metadata related to that knowledge article. We are going to limit this to one single knowledge article. And this is where we're defining the search methodology as hybrid. Going to go ahead and click next. Over here, this is where the different search indexes. So this is where we can specify that we want to search the semantic index to be based both on the title as well as the body. Down here, this is where we could potentially play around with the cosine similarity, but we'll just leave it at the default of 0. meaning that we're going to allow a very open net of information. Go ahead, click next. And then this is where we could, if we wanted to, we could tweak the other aspects of how the semantic search could occur. So maximum number of documents, this is where we could do the chunking strategy, etc. And we'll go ahead and click next. And then finally, you do have the ability to set conditional logic. So you can say, hey, I want this RAG methodology to always be executed, or you could script it. So perhaps you're a managed service provider and you want this specific search methodology to only apply to certain customer segments. You would have the ability to have that type of scripting in there. We'll go ahead and click next, and then we get a summary, and then we will go ahead and we will add this. So far life is good. We have an input of the case record with the summary. We have a retriever where we have retrieved the expense report policy. And now I'm going to cheat a little bit because I did pre-create a prompt. And let's go ahead and bring that prompt in, and we will review the nature of the prompt. So this is where you're defining the prompt. So we're saying to the AI that, hey, you're a travel and expense report expert, and you need to review an expense report. We're gonna need to change this. So we want to retrieve a given policy. So the way that we would retrieve that policy is we're going to insert an input, and it's the ER policy, and it is the RAG results. So this is where we're retrieving the contents of the expense report policy. And then over here, we're going to retrieve input, case. And what we want to get is we want to get the case description. And then we have the other instructions. We're instructing the AI to read through the policy provided, read through the expense report summary, check the summary, and for each day, make sure that breakfast is less than the allowance, lunch is less than the allowance, dinner. And then we've given it instructions in terms of what we want the output to look like. So let's go ahead and save this. And now what we're going to do is we're going to test it. We're going to run a test, and we're going to run the test against case number 1109. And let's see what the results are that we get. So here we are. We have the results, and it said that the trip was pre-approved. Oops, sorry. And it said that, hey, the average nightly cost is $700, which is above the limit. And for each day, there was no breakfast, no lunch, no dinner that exceeded. I actually think this is incorrect. So there may be some hallucination happening here. But let's go ahead and improve our prompt a little bit here. So this is the prompt that we have. But we also have the ability to seek some help. So what we can do is you can click on this little light bulb icon over here, and we can get some prompt assistance. And with that, we can either get some prompt assistance in terms of authoring our prompt from a pre-created library of prompts, or we can also have the AI itself help us generate the prompt. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to copy and paste the prompt definition into here, and I'm going to get the AI to help me generate a more grounded or meaningful prompt. So let's go ahead and do that. And what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, this looks pretty good, right? And then we're going to insert that into there. And you'll notice that it added, oops, sorry. Give me 1 second. I think it inserted it, but it appended it. Give me 1 second here. There we go. Okay. So the AI actually helped us improve our prompt writing a little bit, but you'll notice that the context and the global travel policy are incorrect. So let's go ahead and fix this. So we're going to go ahead and we're going to insert just like we did before, and then we're going to reinsert the case description. And let's save, and let's rerun this. So this is now our refined prompt against case number 1109. And you'll notice that we have slightly different, more accurate results, right? So it said, hey, we checked in on Sunday, we checked out on Wednesday for 3 nights, $700 exceeds the per night limit. And then what it did is it iterated through each one of the respective days that we stayed, and it looked at the breakfast, lunch, and it said whether it was within limit or whether it exceeded limit. For example, day 4 dinner exceeded our limit, etc. So there's a good example. Let me just get back to the slides here. So that was a quick example of a expense report tracker. Just once again, just to remind you of what we did in case it seemed a little bit abstract there. What we were able to do, my bad. What we were able to do was we were able to take a expense report summary as defined on a record, a reference record within ServiceNow. We took a knowledge article that defined the allowable expenses, and using our little cute rag retriever here, we were able to do a comparison to have the AI interrogate the submitted expense report against the given knowledge article and generate a summary of the output. Of course, we would be able to wire this into the user interface. So you can take a custom skill and wire it against a UI action, for example, or you can also trigger it via the Now Assist panel. So that's all I had for today. How are we doing on time? Oh, we're 2 minutes over. I can stick around for questions and answers or anything that has not been answered already by my colleagues. 27. Wow. All right, I will stick around and review these Q&A and provide answers. Thank you very much for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed our session. How do I stop this? Session, thanks on for you.
Hey, thanks, Andre.
Thank you for staying up. I hope, did you guys, do I have to go through the Q&A or were they mainly answered?
We answered most of it. I think one or two questions were around agentic AI, or I mean, questions like agentic AI or AI agents. Is there a difference? I don't know. And then yes, oh, there are a couple of few questions. I can answer a few of them.
Yeah, if we could answer those. I don't know how to, is there a way to answer it after the session asynchronously?
I mean, it's still showing us an option to. I'm not sure about that.
Okay. All right. There's still 77 people on. Okay, we will answer them. Thank you.